Okay, everybody, the streak continues. I told you, everybody that's listening to me, I told you I'm going to bring people that I know you will find interesting and charming. And I'm not just talking about me this time, I'm talking about my guests. This gentleman and I have known each other for, I believe, 725 years.
Give or take.
Introduce yourself to the people, my friend.
I am John Briggs, and I have known Steve, as he said, for 725 years. We would have met in 1986.
Yes.
So
we were both, so that would basically, since you're only a year older than me, we're basically both still had Similac on our mouths when we started.
I was 18 and I looked 12.
And I was 17 looking 14.
Yeah, I wasn't even shaving daily.
That was, to me, that was just very, very funny because there was a few of us that looked like we were 11.
Well, in that group, we were so young. This Paul Tompkins was 18. Adam McKay was 18. The whole group, Dan Fox, I think was pretty young. The whole bunch of us.
Yeah, that is really a weird thing. Now, I'm curious. Everybody has a reason that they picked up the microphone for the first time. Obviously it was a comedy boom at that particular time. But as I say when I talk to comics, it's a different breed of person. Even if you stop doing comedy, whatever made you do comedy, whatever that weird thing is,
yeah,
that makes a comic is a through line through everybody. What made you at that young age actually decide you wanted to stand on stage in front of drunk people and tell them jokes?
I'll give you 3 short answers. From a psychological standpoint, if you want to get all deep into this, my father had a huge collection of stand-up albums. He loved stand-up comedy, and I have no doubt I got into it to impress my father. He had like a huge stack of Cosby albums. My father likes this, I like this. I once had a question from a reporter who said, "Why do you do stand-up?" And I said, "To make temporary friends on my terms." Right. That's all stand-up is. I go for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is. We're friends, and when it's over, we're no longer friends. When the night's over, I go home. So temporary friends on my terms. And the other reason was when I was 12 years old, like I said, my father had a stack of Cosby albums. One of them was called For Adults Only. I don't know if you know the album.
Yeah.
It was like his Las Vegas act. I found it at a record store a couple of years ago, and I had to buy it. But it was like his late night Las Vegas act. It wasn't Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. It wasn't, Chicken Heart or Noah or any of that stuff. It was his late night act. When you're 12 years old and you find a record that says For Adults Only, my parents weren't out driveway and I had that thing on the record player, And I was like, oh my God, you can do this? This is fantastic. I knew who Cosby was from Fat Albert, the electric company and all that. But I was like, wow, I got to do this. And then when I was 16, I saw a Philly guy named Steve Schaefer on The Tonight Show. He blew the roof off the place. It was 1984. He never did the Tonight Show again. But he blew the roof off the place. And I was like, that's it. I'm in. I'm 18. I'm moving to Philadelphia and started stand-up. That's how I got into it,
That is, it's amazing how many people have a similar story. A parent, a parent or something like that, or you heard someone laugh during a tough time and you're going, tough time, add laugh, tough time goes away. I like it.
That's right. Like I said, it's also a great way to make friends. So many guys are like, oh yeah, when I was in the 3rd grade, I got to laugh at it. I said, oh, I love that. I got to get more of that. It's going to be an addiction, I guess.
Now, you do comedy, you do it for a while, and now I know what you do now. And the transition. What closed one door and opened the next one?
Well, I left stand-up twice. The first time I left was in 1999. And I landed a really good job. I was working as a reporter. I was nationally syndicated. I don't know. I was in like 100-plus papers a week, 3 columns a week. So the money was really good. I was only doing stand-up part-time. I'd been doing it full-time for years. And then one day I was doing a show in Lake George, New York. I'd been doing this club for, 6 or 7 years. I did it the first time in the early 90s, about 92, 93. I'm featuring, right, 5 shows Thursday to Friday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 5 shows, $700, 2 free meals in a hotel. 6 years later, I'm headlining the same room, 5 shows, 1 free meal, $300. The money had just dropped out of the business, right? I was like, why am I doing this? I get this great day job. I don't need to be doing this, so I left the business. 2 years later, I lose that job. I'm like, I have no other skills. I'm going back into stand-up. So I'm doing it for years, and then, I did it for a living. I was a road warrior. I did 50 weeks a year on the road. So I'm doing this tour, and I'm in it's a 5-week tour. I did all of the Confederate States but 2. I am touring the South left and right. I'm on the road for 5 weeks. My oldest is 3 years old. I'm doing this show in a place called Winter Haven, Florida. It's outside Orlando. It's a Tuesday night show in front of 6 people. And the next morning I wake up and I go, what the hell am I doing in Winter Haven, Florida? Nobody gives shit that I'm in this town. The only person who cares that I'm here is 3 years old and 1,000 miles away, and I don't want to do the thing. So I cut way back. I just took a couple of big money gigs on the road and just did a bunch of local stuff, got involved in morning radio. And eventually, my son was about 5 or 6, and I started telling him children's stories. And having worked as a writer and editor, I was like, I know how to do this. And so I started, I wrote some children's books, and an editor said, you know what? You can write funny. Most children's authors can't write funny. They think they're funny, but their jokes are terrible. Yours are actually good. We want to hire you, and they offered me. It ended up being 4 books with them. And on the side, I do book editing because I've been working as an editor for years, and I've had the chance to work on a lot of children's books and comedy. It was sort of because I had children. I left comedy and got into children's books.
Editing is freaking painstaking.
Yes, it is. Although it does depend on the book. Some books are like really easy to work on. The author's good. They know what they're doing. They tell great stories. And some you go, oh, God, I'm doing this for the money.
Yeah.
It's different one nighter in Paducah.
I'm just editing my own audio. That's a pain in the butt. I can't imagine. I mean, just sitting there. What if the book blows?
My job is to make it better. And some books you simply can't make better. You just go, well, this will be self-published. And that's what you just do.
I can't even imagine. But what was it like when you, because you said obviously you were in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of magazines and newspapers and things of that nature. Was there one when you saw it, you saw your byline in that paper, it blew your face off?
I'll say there were 2. One because it fell into my lap, and the other because I begged to interview this guy, with George Carlin. It was the only interview I ever asked to do the entire time I was there. I was a TV critic, so I covered Canadian television, I covered comedies, and I covered children's television. And George Carlin was sitting in my lap. He was winning the Comedian of the Year award, Lifetime Achievement Award for the American Comedy Award. And I take whoever they gave me, and they gave me Carlin. I had begged for Carlin. I said, please let me have him. They said, yeah, okay. And then when that ran, it was a well-written article. It was just a great interview. He was supposed to call me one day, and he didn't, right? So I'm like, I get a call the next day from the publicist. He goes, look, George had 15 interviews yesterday. You got lost in the shuffle. Can you reschedule? I said, look, I need him by Wednesday to make my deadline. She goes, no problem. Tuesday, he calls me. Right out of the gate, he apologized. He's like, I'm really sorry. I was supposed to call you last week, but I didn't, and I'm really sorry. And I go, well, it was like 4:30 in the afternoon. And I said, George, I need 20 minutes of your time, and the rest of the day is yours. He goes, yeah, you're my last good day. Take as long as you want. So I heard that. We talked for like 40 minutes, and we got into not just the stuff I needed for the article, but we started talking about comedy theory. Because if you got George Carlin on the phone, pick his brain a little,
I'll be honest with you. If I had him a Carlin interview, just think about the time period where you actually did the interview. Okay, and think about today's date, because that's when the interview would have stopped.
have been 2001, so yeah, you got a lot of time in.
Hey, man, this is Carl.
Well, and the other interview was Alan Alda.
Whoa.
Only because I was at a party in San Francisco, and he happened to be at the party. And I was like, I finagled an interview. I just asked him. I said, hey, are you up for an interview? I'm a reporter. He goes, yeah, okay. He didn't have to do that. You know, and we talked for it was like a quick interview. Fortunately, he was famous enough where I can make up an interview on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
But so I talked to him for like 10 minutes, and then I left the party. I said, I'm going to go back to my room because it was a hotel. And I said, I'm going to go back to my room and work on this. I get on the elevator, he gets on the elevator with me. So we just kept talking, and I asked him another question, and he said, John, I've never been asked that question before. And I thought, wow. I mean, how long has Alan Alda been famous at that point? 40 years?
Mm-hmm. And
he said, I've never been asked that before. We got down and got down to the lobby, talked for like another 5 minutes, and he said goodnight. I said goodnight, and I went back to my room. And that was the other one. I go, wow, I just got Alan Alda on the fly. You know, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, geez. How many people have you actually interviewed? I mean, if you have a roundabout number, do you think?
I don't know, hundreds. And some of them are household names like Alan Alda, George Carlin, William Shatner, Leslie Nielsen, and others were like obscure D-listers who were like on a soap opera, you know, or even like stuff I did for local newspapers where they were businessmen or local bands. You know, they were just hundreds.
It's really weird because when you get super icons and they're like, yeah, sure, whatever you want, and you know you get somebody who's not that. You got 6 seconds, punk.
Yeah, actually, that's what happened with my Leslie Nielsen interview. Although it wasn't his fault, Leslie Nielsen's publicist grabbed me at this meeting in Vegas, and she says, "Do you want to interview Leslie Nielsen at 2:00 this afternoon?" It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yeah, I can swing that. So she tells me I had 15 minutes with Leslie. And I'm like, okay, great. I get there. He's got like 300 people he's signing autographs for. And she goes, okay, look, changing plans. You can't have 15 minutes with Leslie. You can have 5. So I'm looking at my questions and going, okay, which ones do I really want to ask? And then she pulls me aside and she goes, you can't have 5 minutes. You can have 5 questions. Again, I was editing, and it wasn't his fault. There were hundreds of people who wanted to see him. I asked him a question. He'd answer it while he was signing autographs. He said, to Mary, here you go, Mary, and then blah, 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 off to me. And most of the people, I had an interview with a guy over at PBS, and I won't say his name, but his publicist said that he's a bastard. He's a prickly bastard. I get him on the phone. He is charming. He is telling me jokes and stories, and it's fantastic. It gets done. She calls me back after the interview, and she goes, how'd it go? And I go, I'm the press. He loves me. You work for him. He's going to be a prickly bastard to you, but to me, he wants a good story. But most of them were really cool.
That's always good. Now how did you were reviewing Canadian programming?
Yeah. I got the job because Chris Titus, the comedian, he had the TV show Titus in the late 90s.
Yeah, I like that show. Yeah.
He did too. And they were trying to do an interview with Titus, and the publicist wouldn't pitch him. They were pitching other people with the show, and they said, look, we only want Titus, and we're not going to run the story. And they couldn't get him. Well, I had worked with Titus once, but I knew somebody who really knew him well. And he arranged the interview. I got it, and they were impressed. They're like, you got Titus? I go, yeah, you want it? And they were like, because I was a newspaper. I was working as an editor for the same newspaper syndicate. And they were like, yeah, we love it. They took it, and they looked at the article, and they said, hey, you want to do more of these? And I said, yeah. They said, we got a regular opening for a Canadian TV critic. So I started out they're on the Titus piece, but then they moved me over to the Canadian desk, where I was published in 6 papers in Canada. But that eventually grew to a whole bunch of papers in the U.S.
That is pretty cool, my friend. You know, you say... Yeah, well, you say these things casually. There's a lot of people who would like to get one article published.
I had been working in local papers and stuff like that. But then that was the big break.
And then
Even got me to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner at one point.
Oh my! Which one was that?
It was 2001. It was actually George W. Bush's first.
Ooh.
So it was it was in April of 2001. And it is the only time in my life I ever felt over my head. Like, I'm literally sitting 3 tables behind Colin Powell. You know, Julie almost knocked me over coming off an escalator. I was going, what the hell am I doing? I mean, I'm probably the only person here in a rented tuxedo.
Maybe not. GW might add one also.
I could very well be, yeah.
What is it like actually going to that? Because I know obviously that's a huge deal, you know, and I mean, it's like you literally, you have people who are running the planet and people covering the people running the planet in one room. The power in the room, obviously, of course, you have the leader of the free world there as well, which is most important. But when you're walking around there, what is the atmosphere there? You know, when you watch the Golden Globes on TV, it's a bunch of actors, you know, and everyone's having a great time. It's cool and everything. But, you know, their decisions don't really affect anything in the grand scheme of things. But in that room, ooh.
Oh, it's funny. You know the saying, politics is show business for ugly people?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no red carpet like there is at the Golden Globes. It's just a bunch of people. The night before the event, I was sitting in a bar in the hotel, and these guys are like talking business. And it was literally like a smoke-filled room, like you would see in a cheesy movie. The guy's like, "Yeah, I got a meeting tomorrow with the Secretary of Agriculture," and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. It was just weird. So then the next day when I get there, they lock down the hotel like 2 hours before the event. You can't drive a car in. You can't do any of that. And then the next day I'm upstairs. And I'm just, like I said, I'm over my head. I'm sitting next to Betty Rollins. You probably don't know who that is. She was the second woman ever hired to work in Network News. The first was Barbara Walters.
Eesh.
And Betty Rollins is sitting there talking to me and trashing the president while he's up there giving me little jokes. She had covered the Ford administration back in the 70s. I remember when the president was a great man. I'm like, okay. It was just this weird. Like, I had Cardinals sitting at my table. It was the Cardinal Killer of Baltimore at my table. I go, why am I with a Cardinal? I'm an atheist. Whatever.
Did you bring that up?
No, you didn't ask me to keep those ring either. So we had a mutual understanding today. I went to like all these after parties with Tim Russell. My date for the night was Tim Russell's publicist at one time.
Mm-hmm.
You want to meet Tim Russell? Okay. Well, what am I going to say to him? But you just play along. Fortunately, all those years of comedy was enough to improvise and take my way through it.
Yeah, you kind of have to. That's a high-powered room. I mean, I don't know. I mean, every time when I watch them, I tend to watch them, and sometimes it's one of the things. It's like watching an episode of Saturday Night Live when an athlete is the host. And they really shouldn't be trying. They should not try to be funny, but they're trying hard, and it's not working.
You know what's funny is the presidents are usually funny because they're just pumping people in front of the camera. The comedians are always hit or miss. Like the comedian who was there the night I was there was Ben Stein. Not a comedian, the game show. The guy who wrote speeches for Nixon. It was terrible. He bombed horribly. He attacked the crowd, and I was just like, okay. He's like an open micer who turned on the audience because he didn't know what else to do.
They're trying. He's trying to roast the audience.
That's right. Ellen's doing it to them. Then they'll love me for sure. You can't do crowd work in a banquet. First of all, you're sitting behind a dais. The crowd's 50 feet away. You can't do crowd work. It's just terrible.
When you made the open mic comparison, I literally was thinking about Ben Stein on the audience. So what do you do for a living?
That's right.
Secretary of State.
Right. 7 months from now, I'm going to start a war with Afghanistan. How about you?
Yeah, it reminds me of it was a clip of Don Rickles at an inaugural for Ronald Reagan, and of course he's roasting the audience, but he's Don Don Rickles.
Right.
So he can do that.
In the States Center where the audience is only 5 feet away, where they hear an actual theater, not in a banquet hall. The 1,200 of the world's most powerful people.
Yeah, it's just a weird.
And somehow.
Now, I got to ask you about this because I didn't get. I see the title of the book, Political Satire, A Vote for Jesus. Now.
Well, first of all, I have a degree in political science.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that stuff. I got to got my bachelor's at Temple from there. I wrote a lot of political satire. I had created a show in 2003 called A Vote for Jesus. Not A Vote for Jesus. It's called Left Wing Laughs. A Vote for Jesus is the book. And Left Wing Laughs, it was a political show. I did about 70% of the shows with a comic you used to know, Mike Irwin.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Sullivan Irwin. Mike and I did most of the shows together. I love writing political humor. So in A Vote for Jesus, it's a book about a modern-day contemporary Jesus Christ, not the Son of God or anything, but he is running for the U.S. Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. He's from Bethlehem, grew up in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, real town.
Mm-hmm.
And he is what happens is, he gets pegged as a liberal because he's got long hair and a beard, and Herod's the conservative, and then the conservatives hate him because he's obviously a liberal, and the liberals hate him because he has no women in his campaign. He's a guy who's just completely honest and has great ideas and gets bashed by both sides.
Yeah, wait a minute. Reminds me of Bernie.
So a lot of ways, yeah. Everybody's not our guy. Mm-hmm.
The thing that I just find it fascinating because everybody when you're online, everybody essentially attacks each other, has to make their point, and everybody essentially has been pushed to the extremes: extreme left, extreme right, and even the people in the middle have been forced to the sides. It's been like they've been split like the Red Sea. You know what I mean? And I've always been an independent. I've never been either one, and I never will.
I on the other hand have been both.
Hmm?
I on the other hand have been both.
It's just, even as a child, I
grew up in like a conservative part of Pennsylvania. So when I registered Republican. And I think either time I was like a moderate Republican, and then by the time I got to, so I'm like, oh geez, I got to switch parties. I can't take this anymore.
It's amazing, and obviously with the degree that you have, you're paying more attention to these things than the average person. And you also actually have, you can understand it at a level that the average person could not understand it. So
it helps.
When you are watching, like say you're sitting there, you're watching Maddo. Okay. I do that, by the way. I love her. When you're watching, I'll be honest with you. Truth be told, I'm all about the A block on that show. Okay. After that, a lot of times I'm the hell out of there. I want to hear Rachel tell stories. I want to hear her explain things. And I'll check and see what the guest is first. And sometimes I got to get out of there. But
I can live with like opinion on the air. When I can't live with his spin. When I can tell that they are flat out lying to me. I used to, when I was working the road, I would occasionally, I'm talking like once a month, I would put on Rush Limbaugh and then scream at my radio for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd be somewhere in rural Ohio or Kentucky or God knows where. I could get 3 stations, NPR, Country, and Rush. And I put it on and I'd yell. And I feel better about myself.
I'll be honest with you. I was driving through Arizona and New Mexico, and I had to pull out I was going, country music sounds pretty good right now.
That's right. God, there's that twang.
It's amazing when you're listening to something and it's so blatant. Like you said, you can detect spin automatically. What they're saying is so unbelievably false that it requires zero effort to fact check it.
Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, when they say something and you go, we had video of the exact opposite thing happening. Like when they said the Capitol riot on January 6th, it was a group of tourists. A group of tourists don't kill a police officer.
Was that? There's very few times you think when you think about what happens just in general, you always kind of think that the big massive thing that happens that affects everyone is a rarity. 9/11 happens. Oh, nothing that big will happen again. And then something else happens, and then something else happens, and something else happens. This is one of the few times where I'm going, I hope we don't ever see anything like this again, because I've actually taken tours of the Capitol and places of nature. So I have a mental picture of the inside of the building, and the visual of people climbing the walls. Ugh.
Yeah. What is essentially, it's the people's house that's meant to be a fortress in a lot of ways. You're not meant to go in that way. They have doors for that reason.
Well, yeah, he smashed them down. These idiots. But I was completely shocked, and I didn't. To me, it was just basically one of those "where were you when this happened" moments, because it was huge. It is huge.
Yeah. I couldn't take my eyes off the TV when it was happening. And like you, I've toured the building, and when I was in college, I used to go down to Independence Park, right, in Chestnut.
Mm-hmm.
Bring a notebook with me, or a book, and I would just sit in that park and read, or I'd write jokes, or I'd make observations about people walking by. A trick I learned from Wayne Tyre. And then I went back years after 9/11. It was all your gates up, and you had to get a ticket, and all that. It was like a really depressing moment for me. And I wouldn't want to. I know it's already tough. You can't get to the White House, but I would hate to see that happen to other public buildings like that. We need to take those sort of, not because of terrorists, but because of ourselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I still remember after 9/11, we were still doing shows. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of shows I was doing at that particular time, they were benefits for firefighters and first responders and people of that nature and that kind of thing. But the visual of catching a train and walking, at the time I was in Philly, walking into 30th Street Station and seeing machine guns and dogs, and it seems like a bad thing to say, and I don't mean it in the way that it's. You're used to seeing that on television, someplace else, right? The same way if you live in a nice neighborhood and someone lives in a different neighborhood and some horrible things happen, and then somehow one of those horrible things happens near you, and you're going, well, it doesn't happen. This is a very quiet town. No one ever blows up cars here. And I felt weird. And I'm pretty sure everybody felt the same way. You feel weird because you're going, we don't normally have military in our train stations and flying airplanes over top of the buildings and fighter jets. I can look out you just look out the window and you see fighter jets going by, and you're going, what in the blue hell is, so what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, at least 9/11 pulled it together both left and right. For a while there, even though it was temporary, you could agree. The Capitol riot literally tore us apart. Where you go, you were saying about the neighborhood, right? That doesn't happen here. Now you go, oh my God, I can't believe Bob did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you actually know some of the people who were involved or supporting that. That divided us in some weird way.
Hey, I don't know. You're not on Facebook a lot, are you?
I used to be. I haven't been recently. Just been too busy.
Yeah, I put it to you this way. Yeah, I use it just to promote and keep in contact with family and stuff. Man, just like you said, we found out that all of a sudden you realize you're kind of like Neo in the Matrix, and you're looking around and you think you're seeing a regular person, and oh, an agent.
That's right. It transforms before your eyes.
What the hell is going on with this guy? Because we just found out that a police officer from, and a military man from, and a school teacher from And you're going, you were a military person, you were a police officer, you were a school teacher, you were a doctor, and you were over there, kicking Nancy Pelosi's table over? That's what you decided to do?
Yeah, no.
You didn't think anything was going to happen because of that?
Yeah. And somehow thinking you were going to win.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah, I remember Bill Maher had that great joke about the David Koresh compound in Texas back in the late 90s. The Branch Davidian.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And he was talking about how these guys were there with a couple of guns, and he goes, Janet Reno has tents. If she wants to come in, she's coming in.
Yes.
And, you're not going to win that fight. Just walk away.
I've always been fascinated by that. I got guns. And they have tanks and airplanes, dude.
Yeah. You're trying to hack that tent in 19th century ritual. They're going to win.
Now I'm going to ask you this. Now, obviously, you're not doing the stand up. You're concentrating on writing and editing, and you have your books and all that. Has the pandemic affected you much?
Boy, that's a loaded question. Initially,
gotcha.
Right after the pandemic began, books, like every author everywhere was just complaining the books got tanked. I had one book that was canceled by a publisher. They were like, the bookstores are closed. You don't know what we're going to do. So, the early months, it was for everyone. It was really tough. But then what happened was, 6 months into it, people started to contact me and go, hey, I've been out of work for 6 months. I wrote a book. Can you edit it? And all of a sudden, my work exploded and has been that busy ever since. Mm-hmm. Well, I was glad to see people stay productive. My book sales picked up right for Christmas and like they usually do. And have recovered now to be normal. But, man, for 6 months there, I was sweating just like everybody else. Just like every comic who lost the dude, when all the clubs closed and nobody could work.
Yeah, fortunately for me, I had 2 shows, the podcast. I'm like, thank God.
Yeah. I had some royalty checks. I had some passive income from royalty checks. Okay, I'll get by. We'll make it,
So did you get jammed in the arm, my friend?
Oh, of course. One thing, I've been a diabetic now for 44 years. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you do a shot, I'll just line up. Any place that you needle that, I'm in.
Yes. It's not like needles are a big deal for you.
It's right. The first 10,000 were the worst, but after that,
my grandmother was diabetic, and one of the things she did, she was a funny lady, and she had a weird sense of humor, and for some reason she got a kick out of going, "Come here, baby," and then she'd pinch her skin. "You want to give me the needle?" "No, Grandma," and I'd run the hell out of the room.
It sounds like my youngest. Actually, it was weird. My oldest, I have 3 kids. They're 17, 11, and 5. So every 6 years or so, I have a kid. Mm-hmm. My 17-year-old, the first time he saw me get a shot, he was terrified. He was like, I don't know, how old he was, 2 or 3. His eyes got huge. He didn't know what to do. My 11-year-old, when she was about the same age, saw me get a shot. And she was curious, but she didn't want to get too close. Mm-hmm. And then my 5-year-old, when she saw me get a shot for the first time, she stuck her face 6 inches away. She's like, "Ooh, blood."
But oh my, a 17-year-old. Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's weird. I look at him, and you were 17 when you started stand-up. I was 18. I look at him and I go, "Oh my God, he is so not ready for that world." And then I think maybe I wasn't either.
Yeah, you weren't.
I can't doing that.
It's just a weird thing. I have no children, but when my nephews are, they're old now. They're in 20s, late 20s, and things of that nature. I just remember seeing them at a young age and looking at them at the age I was when I started, and I'm going, oh,
yeah.
Oh God, I already know the dumb mistakes you're going to make, and I also know I'm going to give you information that will help you prevent that mistake, and you're not going to listen.
Yeah. I often bring up an Eddie Murphy line from Raw. When Eddie, he's talking about, it was a part of that special where he says, when I was 15, my entire act was about taking a shit. I hadn't done anything else in my life. Mm-hmm. And I look at my son and go, "You haven't done anything yet." Mm-hmm. And then I think I hadn't done anything yet either, which is why my actions was what it was when I was 18, you know?
I gotta know.
You can't.
do, do you have tapes of yourself from back then?
Not quite that old, but stuff from like the late 80s, early 90s, yeah, I still have them.
Good enough. So, have
Yeah.
you sat the kids down and let them see it?
They have seen my more recent stuff before I left the business, where I actually kind of figured out what I was doing. They have not seen the really old stuff. But many years ago, back in the late 90s, I was dating this woman, and I came home from a gig somewhere, and she had found my tapes, and she was watching me, and it was so painful to leave. I just went to the kitchen. I said, I gotta go. I can't do it.
They never find the good ones, do they?
No.
You'll have 50 tapes of you destroying, and you always keep that one tape where you stink, and they find that.
It's a better story. The bombing stories are always better anyway, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, that never happened to me, so I couldn't, so I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you a story of my favorite bombing gig. Looking back to comedy, I was doing I covered Huntington, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I was there, I did like an hour or something. It was this great club. 6 months later, the agent called me and goes, I had a date fall through. I was on the road for him. He goes, look, I can send you back to Huntington because it's an opening spot, but I'll give you a room at $100. I'm like, hey, better than being off for a night. So I go to Huntington on the opening. I bombed. It was so bad, I made a waitress laugh once. I go, what the hell? This was a great room the last time I was here. So the headliner goes up. I'm not going to say his name because he bombed too. But he was this cat out of Minnesota. And he goes up and he dies for 45 straight minutes. So he's like 20 or 30 minutes into his act. And he looks at the audience and he goes, hey, folks, what's going on? And somebody in the back of the room goes, you a Yankee. I mean, full foghorn, leghorn, no verb in that sentence whatsoever. So he gets done. He does his time. He was a professional. He did his time. Now, I'm done for the night. Technically, I don't have to go back up. But I decide, oh, the hell with it. I'm going up. So I go on stage, and I grab the microphone, and I go, you know, folks, in 1863, you guys left the Confederacy and joined the Union. Technically, you're Yankees, too. There's just the booing that ensued after I said that. I get to the back of the room, and the comic looks at me and goes, I got your fucking money. Let's get out of here.
Wait, you didn't realize you were pressing your luck, did you?
I did. Yeah, I did. That's what I did. I was just mad at them. So, you know.
That is.
We hopped in the Jeep and drove. We hopped in the truck and drove back to the hotel.
That is just. But to do the amount of weeks, I never did that. Well, I did that many shows because you said you did 50 weeks a year.
I do. Yeah.
Hey, man.
And sometimes I'd be on the road for 3, 4, 5 weeks straight.
That must have really been because I mean you love doing comedy, but you also have the baby, you know, and
Well, that's why I ended up leaving. Like when I was in my 20s and early 30s before I had kids, I didn't think twice of that. I was gone, and I loved it. I remember getting a call as I'm still living in Philly, and the agent was like, "Can you be in Cleveland tomorrow?" Yeah, no problem. How long? You know, I'm gone. I went to Cleveland for 3 days. Didn't bother me a bit. And then with the kids, I wanted to spend time with them. You know.
And now you have a teenager, and the middle child is how old again?
11.
11. Ooh, about to become a teenager. Ooh.
11's still a good age though, and the reason I like 11 is that they're fun to do stuff with, and they still like you.
For 2 more years.
Yeah, for 2 more years.
Dad, let's hang out. 2 years later, get away from me, old man.
Right. They already called me that because I'm an old father. But
well, let's be honest. You are 53, John. So you know you're kind of up there.
Most of my friends are and I'm having children.
You know, you're not young and 52 like me, so it's a little different.
That's right. That's right. I just want to look good at 60. That's my goal right now. You know.
Do you have did any of the little ones? I mean, they know what they know what you used to do. Do any of them have that gene in them?
my oldest does. And a lot of what he does is like sort of sophomore humor because he's 17. But every once in a while, he'll say a line. And I'm like, that's really good. That's funny. You know? He has no interest in going on stage whatsoever. But he does have some of that, I think, innate skill of being funny. I mean, everybody can be funny at any time, right? You can tell some joke. But there are moments where I go, that's really clever. Good job. You were paying attention when I was talking.
So, what's the next one? Say again?
She's a really good artist. She's got really good artistic talent. And the 5-year-old, just in a pain in the ass right now. She has no real skills.
Not yet.
We're still working on her.
I have this feeling you're going to walk into the room and the child's going to be on the phone with Elon Musk. You know, I really think your full self-driving should go this way, and I think that this is how you do. Shh, my dad's coming.
Right. I think she's going to be an evil genius. I'm like, oh, wow. It was like plotting.
Yeah, you're going to have the little baby working at the NASA. You didn't realize she's doing Zoom meetings at NASA.
My God, she loves Zoom. As soon as I get on a Zoom call, she just has to be on screen. She's like, I want them to see me. I'm like, okay, that's a showbiz genie right there, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a scary thing, you know, to be on Zoom. And I don't know, for some reason, because I've done Zoom calls, and had I known that you were doing Zoom calls, I would have done this over Zoom. I didn't know that. I was just trying to make it easy for you. Well, I was just trying to because a lot of times you contact people, they're like, look, man, I don't feel like setting up microphones and going through all of that. Can you just call me? You know, and I go, all right.
A year ago, I didn't know what Zoom is. Now it's just a business necessity. I'm on Zoom sometimes 3 times a day. Various authors and clients and stuff.
And does it seem to... It's amazing how that seems to have just worked its way into everything. It works its way into everything. Because, you know, it's really weird because at the age that we are, you remember being an adult before these phones existed, before there was an internet.
I know. To actually research things in a library. You know?
Your kids have never known anything but the internet.
No,
why don't you just ask your phone, Dad? You know.
When I was growing up, we had a TV till I was 8, and then when I was 8 years old, my father got a job upstate. We left Philadelphia and went to the Poconos. And it was a small rural town in the mountains, and we couldn't get TV reception, so we didn't have a TV till I was 15. We moved again. We had a new TV. And I told my kids that I'd never TV from I was 8 till I was 15, and you would think I'm trying to hear about the Inquisition or the Black Plague or something. Well,
did you guys? Do you just love the look in their faces when you tell them what you didn't have? You know, you tell them about record stores.
Oh,
what?
God, yeah.
Record what? You know, there was no GPS.
Even the CD is not going to be a stone tablet. It's still old to them.
Oh yeah. You know what you should do? Get them a rotary phone. Change all your phones to rotary.
That's right. Well, I would tell them that I couldn't watch Scooby-Doo until on Saturday morning. It was only once a week, and if you missed it, you missed it. They're like, what? You couldn't get it anytime you wanted? No. There was no streaming.
It's a weird, and it hasn't been that long. It really hasn't been that long. Where it's like when I remember I had my little baby niece, and I hadn't seen her for 3 weeks, and they bring her over to visit, and the cognitive leaps she made in that short period of time.
Yeah.
I'm looking at her. It was like 2 or 3 words strung together at a time, and then she comes back in. Hello, Uncle. How are you doing today? I would like some ice cream. I believe you have some in the freezer. What?
At least you didn't say the 5 words you really dread. Hey, Uncle, you want to hear my 5-minute set?
Oh my God.
5 minutes I just put together. You want?
What would you do if one of them decided they wanted to do stand up though? What would you say?
I'm reminded of something that happened to Mick Jagger. His teenage daughter once got caught sneaking a boy to her dormitory, and they kicked her out of this private school she was in. And Mick Jagger said, "Well, what can I say to her?" And I'm like, if my kid came to me and said, "Dad, I want to go into show business," what am I going to say? You know, okay, give it a shot. You're 18, you're 20, or whatever. Go ahead. You know, you have time to recover from that mistake.
Yeah, because it is.
It's like when you invest in the stock market when you're young, you can afford to take some losses. But if you invest in the stock market when you're 7, you're like, shit, this better make some money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have.
That's what. G20. Go ahead.
Yeah, oh man, that is just a weird thing. What do you think your next book will be?
Actually, I'm working on another political satire based on the character Peter in the book of Vote for Jesus is his campaign manager. And he's got like all this crazy advice that he keeps giving Jesus on how to win a campaign. I'm like, this would make a really good parody of a campaign manager's handbook. So I'm putting all his advice together and putting that together as one book. I'll probably stay with the politics for a little while. I'm also shopping around some other kids' books because my editor left my publisher. So I'm what they call orphaned. Because my editor left. So I'm looking for a new editor at another publisher. So I'm pitching some of those ideas around too.
Does your editor brain ever interfere with the writer brain?
No. And it should, but I always tell authors the first draft is the hardest one to write. 90% of books are abandoned during the first draft. You know, the person can't figure out the characters. They can't figure out where to take the story. So I just it's all stream of consciousness. And then I can let editor brain take over in the second, third, fourth drafts. And so it doesn't really, that first draft is just whatever I'm thinking. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. But no, I'm pretty good at keeping them separate.
No, was this something that you developed later on, or did you have that ability? Because remember when you were doing stand up, you were also, before you became an author, you had to write the jokes and the sketches and the skits, but there was also that part, and every comic has that second brain, that peanut gallery part of your brain, you know, that just tears apart everything you wrote before the audience sees it. Did you develop that ability after stand up, or did you have it even back then?
I probably developed it because of stand-up. I think you work on a joke and you write it down. You go, hey, this is great. And you do like a stream of consciousness thing. Oh, there's a great tagline. Here's this. Oh, I can take the bit over here. Here's a great segue. And then you start to tear apart. You go, oh, that just sucks. Well, that line's not bad. Look at the right something there. And then, of course, you get on stage and then you improvise a line that's better than anything you've written anyway. And you go, well, that line got a laugh. It wasn't even the original joke.
They used to piss me off, actually. They used to piss me off. You know, you sit there slaving over a joke for 3 months, and you walk on stage and just something drops out of your mouth that gets a standing ovation.
What pissed me off even more than that was them forgetting what that line was when I walked off stage.
Is that the most painful thing in the world? If you forgot to bring your recorder, good Lord.
I was doing a show in Bethlehem, PA. Actually, I was there with Buddy Fitzpatrick and Freddie Novak. And I lived this one line, and it got a bigger flop I got up the whole night. And I got off stage, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, what was that thing I said? She goes, well, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention.
Bethlehem, PA with Fred Novak and Buddy, I know exactly where you played.
Yes, the Funhouse.
Funhouse. I used to love going to the Funhouse, mainly because, you know, anytime you get to tell 20 minutes of jokes and somebody hands you money.
Yes.
And by the way, I just want to... What did you...
There a $2 cover at the door, and he goes, to keep out the homeless.
I was like, well, it didn't work, buddy.
It's still the entire front row. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, because that was one of those places when you walked in, and I tell young comics, and a lot of the people that I've had on the show have been comics, and I keep and the young ones, I keep saying, so listen, you're going to listen to horror stories from older comics. I need you to understand something. One, that stuff actually happened. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's going to happen to you. So just prepare yourself for it.
Right. You remember how close the stage was at the funhouse to the bathroom?
Yes, and that pool table.
Yes, and so one night there was a comic on stage, and I won't say who, but if she's on stage, the guy walks by, yanks the microphone out of his hand, and takes it in the bathroom, and then hung it over the toilet while he went to the bathroom.
Alrighty.
That's the kind of place the funhouse was.
I still remember, as many times as I went to that place, I literally remember being in that place, and there's been over the past decades, maybe just 10 to 12 places where I literally walked in, the first time I walked in, thinking, there's a good chance I'm going to leave here with an injury.
Yeah. That was a place in Havertide Grace, Maryland, which was the same way. You're like, oh, this is where I'm going to die. This is it right here.
It's like, oh, God. Yeah, because but by the way, I just want to say, even though it's been a long time, if the IRS is listening, both John and I, of course, paid taxes on all of the money made in Bethlehem back then. It was written down. Every penny of that was the taxes were paid, and all of those bar gigs in South Jersey over the years, exactly the same thing. All the taxes were prepaid for those gigs. I just want to point that out. Thank you. Back to the show.
Even those $25 open mics we did, or a $25 opening spot.
I just want to say right now that John's lying. I never took that money. I donated it all to charity, and thank you. So once you what is if you had say you everything's back to normal, pandemic's over, you're doing good again, everything's great, everything's working exactly, the kids are behaving, they're not doing this, and everything's great, and you have an opportunity to sit down because of finances are perfect and great and everything is fantastic, and now you get to write the magnum opus, your magnum opus. What is it?
Probably the Steve Thomas story.
Well, I'm actually charging a lot of money for the rights to that, so
I'm not sure. I mean, in some ways, the Vote for Jesus was that, because, or another book that I have called For Our Sins. Mm-hmm. Because I'm often fascinated by religion and its respect on the culture. So I'm not sure if I have a story that I would call my magnum opus, but if I come up with it, I'd like to sell the film rights. In fact, the book I just worked on is under consideration over the company that made Titanic. It's always one of those things where you're like, oh my God, I hope the author signs the deal. Not because they're going to get rich, because I could use the advertising.
Yeah.
Same company that made Titanic is not making this book.
So wait a minute. So is that also part of the skill set there, marketing and
Well, you have to get noticed, and you have to get all those 5-star reviews. It's no different than comedy. An agent can call another agent and go, "Hey, how did that Bob do? Oh, he did well. You should book him." You know. But you got to be able to market yourself.
Now, of all the books you've edited, and obviously, I'm assuming you consume books, just kind of chew them up because you love writing.
Yes.
When someone comes across, I know in other art forms, and I'll use magnum opus as an example. When other times when a person comes up with that thing, that monster that just defines them in the eyes of the public, I often wonder, I mean, does it just happen? Because I don't imagine someone sits down and goes, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to sit down right now and I'm going to write something that's so incredible that I can't surpass it. And that's what I'm going to do for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah. Usually when an author says, like, I've talked to authors about it. I have this big idea that's going to be huge. It's going to be the next, I don't know, Charles Dickens book or something, or Harry Potter or whatever. The book almost always sucks. Mm-hmm. They have to grow into it. You just can't say, I'm going to write a Mozart piece. It's going to suck. just write what you can write, you know. You're not at that level, and so I just tell people just write and let it go. My biggest stand-up bit, the one that like I used as my closer for years. I wrote, like I said, a lot of political comedy. Was it called Yeehaw or Jihad?
Mm-hmm.
And it really started out. I was working for a radio station, and we were working on a fake radio ad about how they were selling the Iraq War like a beer commercial or a soap commercial. And I had this line in the commercial that said, "Whether you say Yeehaw or Jihad, this war's for you." Yeah. And then I was like, oh, so we turned that into a bit on the radio where I came up with an idea for a bit on the radio where I would read off quotes from either right-wing evangelical ministers or Islamic terrorists. Mm-hmm. And people would have to call in and guess who said it. And they would win free tickets to my show because we didn't have a budget. Mm-hmm. So, and people just get it wrong. I mean, constantly get it wrong because the quotes were so freaking crazy. And eventually I said, hey, there's a stand-up bit in this. So I turned it into a bit. I did audience participation with them. And if they thought it was, an evangelical minister, they said, yeehaw. And if they thought it was an Islamic terrorist, they had the usual, thing. And it became this great fun bit that I did for years. And I would just update it every time somebody would say something crazy.
Oh,
you know?
Call and response in stand up when you can get them super involved in the bit, man. That's like being a rock star. It's like being Freddie Mercury out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there was a great closer that people were like, yeah, do that bit. I mean, what do you got this time? Well, okay.
No, what do you think?
It was a little grain of one idea that became this big giant bit.
No, imagine yourself now writing the same bit and performing it right now. What do you think the response would be?
Yeah. It was funny because even then, like I did most of my political stuff I did in theaters, so they came and they knew what they were getting. But if I did it in the comedy clubs, even then people would boo. I walked half a room once in the Berkshires up in Massachusetts. They had booked me to do political stuff, and then they didn't advertise it as a political show. People thought they were just getting ready for stand-up, and I walked half the room. And then the other half were like, wow, you're fantastic. And I go, yeah, I kind of noticed only 50% of you left, you know?
That is one of the weirdest things you ever get to see as a comic. To those of you listening, if you don't understand the term you use, walk in the room, that is literally means people get up and walk out during your set. And whether you're on stage or not, when you see that, the energy of the room is completely destroyed. It's like because it's difficult enough dealing with the commotion of maybe waitresses coming up to get drinks or food orders. But when you have 25 people en masse get up, turn around, and walk out, it's a bit distracting.
Yeah, I was doing a showcase club once in New York City in this restaurant. And, showcase club, they put you on, whatever, you get your few minutes. And there may be 15, 20 people in the audience. And my first line got this huge laugh. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. 3 minutes in, I'm walking out. Even the college in the back, one guy gives me the thumbs up. I'm popping in the back of the room. This is going great. Then all of a sudden, this table in the middle of the room gets up and walks out. There were 6 of them. And the restaurant had this tile floor. So I pushed back, makes this sound. And everybody just turns to look at them, and that was it. The magic was gone. The energy was gone. And I struggled for the next couple minutes before I said goodnight.
Yeah, I always think about
that atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like those old vaudeville plate spinners. You know, you get to spin, those plates. And
the audience has no idea what you're doing. You're trying to gauge the energy of the room, where the laughs coming from, and the rhythm, and the pacing, and the lights, and the sound. You're doing all these things. Which jokes are working? Which jokes are working? What can I keep? What can I drop?
Yeah, yeah. But that's the funny thing is because a lot of times, no matter what your art form is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an art that is performing arts, whatever your art is. A lot of times, you don't necessarily want people to see the magic behind it. I mean, a plumber doesn't necessarily want you to see what he or she's doing, because if you see it, then you can figure it out. You're not going to call them.
That's right.
If I know what wrench,
And there's something just bad and boring about watching comedians break down a joke.
It's bad when you're another comedian.
Yeah.
You've been on the diner when somebody you're with a bunch of other comics, and a guy has a great show, and he has to sit there and try to analyze every joke he did. Like, dude, I just want to eat my club sandwich, man. I don't want to.
That's right. There's a time for that. When you're back home in your room,
Hey, man, you should have seen it. You got to understand. See, I wrote that bit on a bus, and then I don't care.
That's right.
Pass me the salt.
And it's one thing if you tell a guy online. I've started with comics, and they've done it with me. Where the guy's got a bit, and you go, "Hey, have you thought of using this?" That's different than when you're trying to break it down and analyze the punchline and set up. Everybody's got somebody.
Did you? I got to ask you this. I can't let you go without asking you about this, because I'm looking at your LinkedIn right now, in your About section.
Okay.
Because I just pulled it up while we were talking. And I looked up and I see, obviously we've discussed the articles, and obviously I know you from the comedy days and journalist, editor. We've discovered that. We discussed that rather, the articles, Vote for Jesus. And I'm looking at the very last part of your About section. And I see a word there. And it rhymes with mobbyist.
That was my first job out of college, actually.
What in the book? I've never, okay, I'm not aware of meeting a lobbyist or anybody that does that. Now that I have access to someone who's done this, could you explain to me and the people what exactly does a lobbyist do? And just explain the whole groove of that, my friend. I need to know. I have to know.
Okay. I will first of all say it was my first job out of college. All right. It was 1990. And I was a peon in the company. All right. So that's another thing. I didn't go to D.C. and go into a congressman's office and go, "Hey, can you give us this bill?" Basically, what I did was I tried to raise money for the Clean Air Act of 1990 and a banking reform bill they were working on. So I would call people literally try to get them to make donations so we could advertise, or so we could say to the Congress people, "Hey, we've got 20,000 signatures or whatever." I drafted the occasional press release, but the big guys, of course, they were in there going, "Look, we need to make the air cleaner by doing X or Y or Z," and they would talk to the Congress people. Because, like I said, we were working on national bills, but I was a peon in the company. I never got to go anywhere.
Hold it a second. You're no fun. You were actually lobbying for stuff that helped people.
Yeah, I know. Banking reform was really popular. When you mention that, people go, "How do you want to fix the banks?" What can I do to help? Clean air, screw that. What can I do to get my money? That was the one I cared about.
It's a funny thing, because people think lobbyist, and you automatically assume it's a guy going, "Listen, we want to skeet shoot puppies. Here's $50,000. That's what people think automatically. But you got to realize, if there are people doing that, there actually has to be people on the other side, part of the Don't Skeet Shoot Puppies Foundation. And
that's right.
I had to put that down. That is amazing. That is a very interesting transition that you made, man. It's a very, very interesting.
After I lost the lobbyist job, I worked as a stockbroker for a while and hated it. So I said, that's it. I quit. I'm going to do stand-up full time. And that was when I made the break. I said, well, I'm 21 years old. It was 23. I'm like, it's now or never. 1991. I'm like, I was getting offers to go on the road constantly. So about a year working day jobs, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I got to find something else.
Stockbroker.
I got hired part-time to work for a magazine in Philly, actually. They were up in around New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Up that way. And they were like, we need a political writer. Can you do that for us? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Then they found that I was doing stand-up on the weekends. And they were like, hey, we need an entertainment reporter. So I wrote under two different names. I wrote my political stuff under my real name and the entertainment stuff under a fake name.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I ended up down that route of the entertainment reporter.
Let's not gloss over this stockbroker thing, Buster.
I hated it.
I mean,
that company was so corrupt. It was like nothing but like this side of a pyramid scheme.
Whoa. You're saying that stock brokerages do things that are not good? Because I will not listen to these lies.
Let's just say when I was in training, I was in training with, I was talking with there were four of us in this training session for the company. And there was this one woman, and we're like, hey, isn't that, the two of us were like, isn't that illegal? And the guy instructing us was saying, well, technically, yes. Well, I believe the law thrives on technicality. And then it was like, I don't know, a few weeks later, I'd gotten my license, and the front page of the Wall Street Journal, this company was being investigated for all sorts of crimes. And we're like, yeah, I've seen that one. Oh, I haven't seen that one. I've seen that one. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And I
So, do you dabble in the the fractional stocks now?
No, I'm not that. I mean, I own stock, but I don't play. I just invest the money. I think it's a long-term game. I'm not going to get involved with Bitcoin. The money's there for my retirement and my kids' college funds. I'm like,
wait a minute. You're not going to invest your kids' college funds in Bitcoin? Why?
Because I haven't worked at the timing, or Elon Musk thinks it's a scam.
I actually had some money in Bitcoin for a little while, and I just started watching it, and I went, "Oh, that's not good," and I got the hell out of there quickly. Yeah, I got it.
I'm not built for that kind of ride, I'm not built for that kind of roller coaster ride.
I can't do it. I can't. I just couldn't do it. And if I had stayed, I didn't have that much. I only had a little bit in there, and because like I said, you just throw a few bucks in there just to see what happens. And I just watched it go.
I mean, when the stock market crashed in 2008, I saw an interview with Bill Gates. And he was worth like $80 billion at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And he'd lost like $28 billion in the market because of the crash. Mm-hmm. So this reporter at NBC said, have you noticed it? Do you feel the effect of losing $28 billion? And Bill Gates gave him a look like, you're out of your mind. I still have $60 billion left.
I wish I was standing next to Bill Gates when he asked that question, because he would have had ruptured eardrums from the volume of my laughter.
Yeah. I think at least give Gates credit for realizing that, hey, I'm still worth 50 or 60 billion. I'm fine. As the people who've lost everything, their houses, their retirement. I just can't imagine losing 20 billion in a day.
Mm-hmm. I watched the guys and they were like, Elon Musk lost 40 billion. Bill Gates lost 27 billion. Warren Buffett lost 35 billion. They're all still worth over $100 billion. I'm pretty sure the milk prices won't bother them.
With Bill Gates' divorce, he's staying in a cabin that he owns. It's not even his main house. It's worth $12 million. Like his little summer house is worth more than my lifetime income.
Mm-hmm. Just imagine. It's like you always see guys complaining, I can't believe it. My wife took half of everything. So do you think you could survive on the $82 billion you have left?
That's right.
That's like, the people that really, if you're really, really broke, the stock market means nothing to you. If you're ultra rich, the stock market means nothing to you.
Yep.
So all the rest of us sitting there going, come on, man, please. I've
been so broke. There was one of those days doing stand-up. I would have good years and bad years and good months and bad months. If she had left and took half of everything, I'd have been like, well, what do you want, the ottoman or the chair? Because that's all we got. You know?
Yeah, it's like, listen, do you want both bowls or one bowl?
Like,
I need to keep that coffee cup. I'm taking the dog. Good. That one. I don't like the dog.
Which half? The front or the back?
I'm taking the kids. Oh no. Oh,
really?
I'll just get to show up with gifts and enjoy them when they're already clean, and then leave and then have them complain to you. That's tough.
I get these weekend dad. Cool.
Oh man, John. Hello? I heard a beep.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I heard a beep. Yeah, okay. My friends. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know. Sometimes you get a little. Sometimes you get a little interference. Sometimes, not you specifically. It happens sometimes when I'm talking to people, depending on what's going on. But we have concluded today's episode, and I want to thank you, man. It was great talking to you and catching up, my brother. You know, I always wondered. We must talk again, but when we talk again, it will be on Zoom.
That would be fantastic.
John Briggs, everybody.
Much
love to you. Thank you. I really appreciate talking to my brother. Thank you for coming on.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, we'll talk, my brother. Take care. All right. You dug that, didn't you? See? What did I tell you? More importantly than anything, I want to thank you guys for coming back, showing support for the show. We have some cool guests coming up in the coming weeks. I want to thank you for checking out the previous shows, and I look forward to seeing you, rather hearing you. Wait a minute, I can't see or hear you. But just kidding. I can see you. I'm in your phone. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Much love to you. Take care.